Good evening. My name is Matt Semrad. I am the Northeast Region Quality Control Manager. I work underneath Dan Lucas and Ron Rogie in the heavy civil region of the Northeast, covering territory anywhere between Cleveland and Massachusetts. I hardly have any time to spend discussing my history, so I'd like to start with a simple question. Who here loves baseball? Excellent show of hands supporting America's favorite pastime. Next question. Who knows who these two gentlemen are and what they have in common? Yes, they were both part of the Cubs organization, but I'm looking for something a bit more than that. Anyone? Okay, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Jose Morales and Rafael Dolis. What they have in common simply is this, that both Jose and Rafael had perfect seasons. Wait a minute. If you know baseball, it's darn near impossible. But you heard me right. And you may think it's not possible, but it is. I'm going to explain. In 2007, Jose achieved a major feat by hitting a 1.00 average, and in 2011, Rafael was able to achieve a similar feat with an unprecedented 0.00 ERA. And what does this mean? If you don't know baseball, none of that really makes sense. What that means is that every time that Jose batted, that he got on base, and that every time that Rafael pitched, he didn't allow a single run to cross the plate, which is pretty impressive if you think about it. What else do these gentlemen have in common? Anybody else? Well, the irony to the situation is that they may have had a perfect season, but they only played in one inning of that season. Give me a moment. I'm going to loop around and come back to this line of thought. See, baseball understood something very early, that statistics over time are a measure of consistency and therefore value. What the MLB embraced as the result is simple, that even the best player over time is going to strike out or is going to let a run cross the plate. Why is this important that I show you this, and how could this possibly apply to us? Well, when I say that my project has excellent quality, does that mean that I'm always going to get hits, or I'm always going to throw no-hitters? An even better way to look at that question, does a project that has not reported rework have a good quality program? I believe the answer is no, and I'm going to explain why. A couple of years ago, we were approached with a similar question, inquiring which projects actually understood or got quality. Almost instantly, we grew tired of hearing that quality is good, or we have no rework, but we had no other tangible metrics of comparison. So we started down a path in search of these familiar statistics. Our first step in developing these metrics was to gain an understanding of the cost of quality, which I'll summarize here. There are four costs associated with the cost of quality. As you can see here, I have highlighted the first two costs of poor quality. The first cost of poor quality, as shown in the upper left, is the cost of internal failure. Typically, the cost of internal failure is comprised of variables like rework dollars or time delays. The second cost of poor quality, which may impact us even more, happens to be intangible. This is the cost of external failure, which is comprised of things like owner perception. I say that this will cost us more simply because if you have a project where you've had a failure, you know that the owner is going to stand in the way of your work thinking that you're either incompetent or sneaky. Together, those two make the cost of poor quality. Next, you will note the cost of good quality on the right. In the upper right-hand corner, you will see the variable cost of prevention. Prevention in this regard is going to be things like training or planning. I refer to this as the cost of work plans. And in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see the appraisal cost. Appraisal costs are things like concrete testing and welding inspection. These costs, to do them once, are constant and are estimated as such in the contract. All four of these combined create the cost of total quality. What this means is simply this, that the cost of training and work plans plus the cost of rework and delays is equal to the cost of quality. What does this really mean? These two variables are the only place that we have an opportunity to change or to see change. Does that make sense? Let's take a look at this from a little bit deeper and different perspective. Here's what is referred to as an economic conformance model. This is very similar to a supply and demand curve. In the orange, you have the cost of failure. The blue is the cost of prevention, and the gray is the total cost of quality, or the combined value of the two. What I want you to see is that as you increase your effort in prevention, you will see a reduction in the cost of failure. This makes sense, doesn't it? The more we invest into preventing rework, the less rework we see. The key operative here is prevent. See, inspection, as we've seen it in the past, is not prevention. It is a constant in the original equation. So what we're really getting at is pretty simple. We're going to take this a little bit further. If my project spends all its effort in quality through inspections and places zero emphasis on prevention, then we will see the highest volume of rework and the total cost of quality will be high. See, cost of prevention 0, cost of failure high, cost of quality even higher. Conversely, if my project goes and spends an exorbitant amount of money in quality, we will see that we have almost zero rework. But again, we will see costs for quality that are very lofty. And this is potentially the first time you will ever hear this from someone in the realm of QC, but it's important that you understand where I'm coming from. Where I'm coming from is simply this. There's an optimum quality that we in the Northeast realize that we need to achieve. What am I saying? In order for us to be competitive in our market, we need to find this point of optimal quality. Inherent to this statement are a couple of key thoughts. One, we're not going to be perfect. We, as a leader in quality, need to learn to embrace a currently unknown level of failure. This requires positive reinforcement for reporting, which I'll get to later. Secondly, the only way that we find the sweet spot and the only room for change is in modifying our level of preventative effort while monitoring the cost of rework and associated delays, which is what we did in the Northeast region. We have a QC manager on every site whose primary role includes the daily monitoring of task quality assessments while providing near real-time feedback to the field, a preventative measure. They monitor and facilitate work planning, a preventative measure. They deliver quality toolbox talks to the field on a weekly basis, education, another preventative measure. And they monitor for rework, failure tracking, while looking at trends for opportunities to change, prevention. Now, this isn't all they do, but we help them reprioritize quality prevention and monitoring as their key responsibilities. Every month I speak to them, survey our quality control managers on all their primary responsibilities, which I listed previously, and this is what I get. If you compile this information for a long time, you will end up with a lot of very valuable information. In 2013, as you can see here in this slide, we spent about $1.44 per man hour. So we didn't estimate this cost, but I'll get back to that. Our average incident size was somewhere around $23,000. So every incident we saw you could expect it to be about $23,000, $24,000. And we could expect to see one at a rate of about every 23,000 man hours for a total volume of rework of about $4.4 million. You can also see here that in 2014, we got substantially worse. Wait a minute. You said you invested more into prevention. How'd you get worse? Well, give me a moment, and this will all make sense, and I will explain. In 2014, we spent about $3.62 in rework per man hour at an average incident rate of about $18,140 per incident. We also saw incidents at a frequency of about every 5,000 man hours, and depending on your project size, that could be once a week, for a grand total of for about $4.1 million. Last month is also attached below, and you will get to see this a little bit later on, so I'm not going to cover it right now, because I'm going to show you the dashboard that I give to Dan every month to help him make intelligent decisions in the realm of quality. Here you're going to see dollars per man hour of rework over time. And before I get too carried away, you have to realize something. This money has been, to some degree, extracted from our estimated productions, which have historically included some rework. But realize that this is a lost opportunity for profit. As you can see from the trend line, we start recording in about July of 2013 at about $1.10 per man hour, increasing to about $1.90 per man hour in November of 2014. Now, I don't expect you to remember these figures because that's my job, but $1.90 of unestimated rework is terrible, right? I mean, how could you let that happen? Stick with me. I want you to consider two other things. Over the course of the same duration, we went from reporting incidents at a frequency of approximately 1 incident per every 27,500 man-hours to currently we're at about 1 incident per every 6,500 man-hours. We are effectively reporting incidents at about 4 times as often, which seems terrible, but stop. I want you to consider something. We're nurturing a culture where people are becoming more comfortable reporting, so they're going to report more often. Finally, when you take a look at the average incident size between July of 2013 and November of 2014, you will see that we started at an average incident size of a roughly 27,500 per incident, concluding at about $17,500 per incident. This seems like a good thing as our incidents are becoming about half as severe. But more importantly, people are investigating smaller incidents because they have value as well. So now they aren't just more comfortable with reporting, they're also becoming more. You need to understand something. I may have a great asset here with this information, but this is all the result of a leadership decision by Dan Lucas. He reinvested into quality, and I'm not talking about a huge investment. I'm talking about formal training for our staff, meaningful project audits, providing constant feedback via a dashboard of useful metrics, getting involved and showing an interest, all while stopping the disciplining and chastising. This together has created a culture where Walsh employees in the Northeast are now more capable of seeing rework as an opportunity for improvement, and we're getting better every day as a result. So I was supposed to develop tangible goals for 2015, but there are obvious challenges in that we haven't reached a point of equilibrium in any of our statistics, aka we're still growing. We're still seeing incident size reduce and the frequency increased, and are now finding increases in the total dollars per man hour as the result of the other two statistics. So for 2015, my goal is that I would like to see these come to a point of either continued improvement or equilibrium. In addition, I think it's time that this type of operation begins to spread across the company, much like Manifest Destiny during the early American settlement. A lot of that has to do with you and your desire to invest and begin making some of these decisions, which is why I'm here today. Remember Jose Morales and Rafael Dolis? Both may be great players, but they were only great for an inning. They just weren't able to provide enough statistics for us to make a decision as to whether or not they were good. See, quality players, the greats, are not perfect, and we need to embrace that. We aren't fortunate enough to be safety. We don't have OSHA to set our guidelines for us. We rely on the conscientiousness and integrity of our employees for reporting. If we learn to reprioritize quality and support our teams, we will begin to see more valuable metrics and new leading indicators because of participation and improvement. We need to begin by encouraging prevention and cheering on reporting using positive reinforcement. I want to thank you guys very much for your time this evening. We're going to move on to the monthly report that I showed Dan so you can gain an understanding of what he looks at every month in the Northeast region to make his decisions.